Imagine walking down a quiet American backroad, the trees swaying, the air heavy, and then realizing you are not alone. The whispers you hear are not the wind, and the woman standing in white at the end of the road isn't human. This is not just a story, this is the last walk you'll ever take. If you'd like more calming journeys like this, more stories where the darkness carries you softly into sleep, don't forget to subscribe and tap like. Your support keeps these midnight tales alive, and it means you'll always have a place to return whenever you need rest. Tonight, as you lie back and allow your mind to drift, I want to take you to a place few have seen, a place where the world has ended, but life, in its strange and fragile way, continues. The sun has set. A pale orange glow lingers on the horizon, painting the clouds with fading light. The air is still. No car engines hum, no children laugh, no doors slam shut. The town before you stands silent. Silent in a way that feels heavy, as if every sound that once belonged here has been swallowed by the earth. This is Main Street, once alive with the rhythm of daily life, a place of morning commutes, weekend markets, and warm summer parades. But now, only shadows remain. Walking through Main Street, you step onto the cracked pavement. Your footsteps are soft, measured. A gust of wind pushes dried leaves across the ground, their brittle edges scratching against the concrete. Above, a sign sways gently, half broken, the paint peeling until the letters are unreadable. The smell of rust lingers in the air. Iron from forgotten tools. Iron from broken pipes. Iron from things you'd rather not think about. Every building you pass is a memory. The diner on the corner, with its once bright red booths and the smell of coffee that used to waft into the street. Its windows are now dust-coated, cracked, the inside covered in cobwebs. You imagine the sound of plates clinking, the buzz of chatter, and for a moment, you can almost hear it. Almost. But then the silence returns. The library's shadow. On your left, the town library towers above you. Once a proud building, its steps now broken, vines curling up the columns. The doors hang crooked, as if the last person who entered never had the strength to leave. Inside, shadows stretch endlessly. Pages flutter in the breeze from shattered windows, books lying scattered on the floor. If you listen closely, the whisper of those pages almost feels alive. Like voices, but not quite. You pause, your eyes lingering on the doorway. You remember when children sat on these steps, listening to stories read aloud in the summer sun. Their laughter carried into the streets. But those voices are gone now, replaced by nothing but the empty echo of the wind. Survivor's path. You keep moving. Survivors once marked this street with chalk symbols, arrows pointing toward food, warnings etched onto walls. Most have faded, but here and there, you see a crooked line, a half-erased message, safe inside. Quiet. The word quiet repeats in your mind. It feels like the only law left. Speak too loudly, breathe too heavily, move too quickly, and the world outside will remember you exist. And you don't want that. The distant groan. Somewhere far beyond the barricades, a low groan rises. It's faint, almost blending into the wind, but unmistakable. You freeze. The groan lingers for a moment, then fades. Silence again. Your heart slows, your breath steadies. It's always like this. The living must carry on, always shadowed by the dead. The forgotten shops. You pass a small grocery store. Its shelves are bare, the glass door shattered. An old shopping cart lies on its side, wheels bent. You imagine someone once running here in desperation, searching for food, for water, for hope. The shelves would have been stripped bare within days. A children's toy lies by the entrance, a small stuffed rabbit, its fur dirty and torn. You wonder if its owner ever made it out, or if the toy is all that remains of them. Across the street, a barber shop stands open. The chair's still there, mirrors cracked, scissors left rusting on the counter. You picture conversations once filling this place, arguments about football, laughter over silly stories, the buzz of clippers. Now, only dust. Closing the chapter, the street stretches onward, fading into twilight. Every building whispers a memory. Every corner hides a story. You walk slowly, not in fear, but in reverence. This town, silent as it may seem, still holds life. Not in its buildings, not in its empty shops, but in the people who dare to survive here. And tonight, you are one of them. The silence of Main Street surrounds you, pressing against your ears, but it is not suffocating. It is a blanket, heavy, but familiar, a reminder of what has been lost, and what remains. You breathe deeply. The night has only just begun. You turn off Main Street and step into the old town library. This is where they live. The survivors. The doors are barricaded with wooden planks planks, chairs stacked high, and ropes tied across the handles. It doesn't feel strong enough to keep anything out. But the people inside don't rely on walls, they rely on silence. Inside, the air smells of wax and old paper. The hall is dimly lit by candles, their flames swaying gently. Every shadow on the wall feels alive, shifting, bending, whispering secrets. The survivors sit close together, always close. They speak in voices so soft they are barely more than breaths. Words are never wasted. Sound is never wasted. At night, they gather in a circle, the children at the center. A single candle burns between them, its flame trembling as if nervous. One of the elders begins to whisper. Not loudly, not clearly, just low enough for the others to lean closer. He tells stories of before. Stories of warm summers, of music echoing in the streets, of birthdays and laughter. His words weave comfort. But even in comfort, his eyes flicker to the windows, as though afraid the past itself might draw the dead closer. The children barely remember that world. They listen as though he is describing a dream. And maybe he is. Every evening, before they sleep, the survivors perform a ritual. One by one, they press their hands against the cracked marble wall, leaving faint smudges of ash. No one explains why. Some say it keeps the spirits of the dead from entering. Others whisper that the wall listens, and if you do not leave your mark, it forgets you, and when it forgets you, you are no longer safe. You place your hand there too. The stone feels cold, too cold, as though it has been touched by something deeper than the night. Later, as you lie down among them, the silence feels heavier. It presses against your chest, against your throat. The survivors breathe softly, afraid even of air. And then, somewhere within the darkness, a voice begins to whisper. Not one of them, not from inside the circle. It comes from the corner of the library, where the shelves are broken and shadows pool too deeply. The whisper is too faint to understand, yet the sound curls around you like smoke. You turn to look, but there is nothing there. Only empty shelves. Only the shifting glow of candlelight. When you turn back to the others, their eyes are wide. They heard it too, but no one dares to speak. A sudden noise echoes. Not loud, but sharp. A crack, like glass breaking, far above. Every candle flickers violently. Every survivor freezes in place, staring at the ceiling. Silence returns. Deep silence. A silence so heavy you can hear your own heartbeat. Minutes pass. Nothing happens. The world outside stays still. But in that silence, every survivor knows the same truth. The walls are thin. Too thin. The night stretches long. Some of the survivors drift into shallow sleep, their breaths soft, uneven. Others stay awake, eyes wide, staring into the dark. And you lie there, surrounded by whispers that never fully fade, wondering whether the true danger waits outside the library, or is already here, in the room with you. The flame of the last candle shivers, then steadies. The night is not over yet. When dawn arrives, it is pale and gray. The survivors rise in silence, moving carefully, as though each sound must be measured. The library's doors are unbarred for only a moment each morning, long enough to step outside, to gather water from the cracked fountain in the square, to stretch beneath the pale sky. The barricades at the edge of town are close. Wooden planks nailed to rusting cars, wire strung between poles, sheets of tin bent and hammered into place. They are not strong. They were never strong. They are reminders, not walls. Reminders that beyond them, the shadows wait. From time to time, the sound comes. Not always, not often, but enough. A groan, low, trembling, drifting on the air like smoke. Sometimes one voice, sometimes more. They echo together, rising and falling like a choir that does not breathe. The survivors never move when they hear it. They do not speak. They do not even blink. They simply freeze, waiting, their eyes wide. The sounds fade eventually. They always fade. But silence, here, is never comfort. Silence is the space where something might be listening back. One afternoon, you climb the old water tower to watch the horizon. The metal ladder creaks softly under your weight, and the air grows colder the higher you go. From the top, you see the world beyond the town. Empty fields stretch endlessly, but not truly empty. Shapes move among the tall grass. Not quickly, not loudly, just shapes, bending and swaying. From this distance, you cannot tell if they are human, or not. They never look up. But some part of you feels they already know you are watching. That night, as the survivors gather again, you hear something new. Not a groan, not a whisper. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, moving along the barricades, circling, as though something outside is testing them. The sound of dragging feet in the dirt, A shuffle that grows louder, then softer, then louder again. And then it stops. The silence that follows is worse. Because in silence, you cannot tell if they left, or if they are still standing there, waiting. Inside the library, the candles flicker wildly. Shadows stretch tall against the walls. It happens one night, when the candles are burning low and the survivors are drifting between waking and sleep. A sound cuts through the silence. Not a groan, not a whisper, not footsteps on dirt, but a crackle. Sharp, electrical, unnatural in this world of silence. The survivors lift their heads at once, eyes wide. The sound comes from the far corner of the library, from an object long forgotten beneath dust and cobwebs. One child points to the window. Her finger shakes. You look. For a moment, you see nothing. Just the empty street, lit by the moon. But then, the shadow moves. Not from a person, not from a tree. It moves against the light, bending the wrong way, as though the darkness itself shifted closer. When you blink, it is gone. The child lowers her hands slowly, but her eyes do not leave the window. The survivors huddle closer, whispering prayers, whispering promises. The barricades are thin, the walls are weak, and beyond them, the shadows know. They know the last town is here. They know it still breathes. And one night soon, they will press against those walls, until silence breaks. Old, rusted, its antenna bent at an awkward angle. No one had touched it in years. Yet now, it crackles with static, like a voice clearing its throat. At first, there is nothing but noise. White, endless, broken noise. And then, a word. A voice, distant, fractured, almost too soft to hear. Hello. The survivors freeze. Some draw closer, pressing their ears near the speaker. The voice breaks again, scattered by static. Safe, north, come. The words are barely there, like pieces of a dream. But they are words. Words that should not exist in this silence. The survivors whisper frantically. Could it be another town? Another group alive? Could they be out there, waiting? But not everyone believes. Some shake their heads, eyes dark with fear. They whisper that the voice was not human at all. That the dead sometimes speak. That they mimic the living. That they call you closer, until you cannot return. You cannot tell if this is only superstition, or something born of truth. One of the elders dares to touch the radio dial, turning it slowly. The static shifts, rises, falls. Again the voice cuts through, stronger this time. Town, last, standing. Your blood runs cold. Those were the exact words the survivors used to call this place. The last town standing. But no one here ever broadcasted it. No one had spoken those words into a machine. And yet, the voice repeats them, clearer, closer. Last, standing. The candle beside the radio flickers violently, though no air moves. The shadows on the wall bend and twist, reaching toward the sound. The survivors pull away, some trembling, some clutching each other. But still, no one dares to turn it off. Because whether it is hope, or something darker, it is the first voice they have heard in months. And the silence that follows would be far worse. The radio hums softly through the night, its static filling the empty spaces between heartbeats. Some survivors whisper that the voice was salvation. Others whisper that it was a lure. You do not know which to believe. But one truth presses against you as you close your eyes. If there is something out there speaking, then there is something out there listening, too. And now, it knows exactly where you are. The library grows quieter as night deepens. The last candle burns low, its flame shrinking, bowing lower and lower until it is barely aglow. The survivors gather close to its light, as if their bodies themselves can shield it from going out. Around you, the air feels heavy, as though silence itself is a weight pressing down. Each breath sounds louder than it should. Each heartbeat echoes in your ears. One by one, the survivors lower themselves to the floor, curling into sleep. No one speaks. No one dares to break the fragile stillness. You lie down too, staring at the cracked ceiling, tracing the way the shadows crawl across it. At first, you hear nothing but breathing. But slowly, softly, the whispers begin again. Not from mouths, not from the living. They come from the walls, from the shelves, from the spaces between the floorboards. 1,000 voices, layered and distant, speaking words you cannot quite understand. They sound like lullabies. They sound like warnings. They sound like the echo of every word that has ever been spoken here. You close your eyes. The whispers slip into your dreams. In the dream, you walk through the town again. Main Street stretches endlessly, longer than it ever was, as if the world itself has unfolded. Shadows move in the distance, not groaning, not shuffling, but gliding, silent and smooth. They turn their heads, though they have no faces, and somehow you feel their eyes. One raises its arm, pointing toward you. Its hand is too long, its fingers stretching like branches. When you blink, the shadow is gone, but the pointing remains, etched into the air itself, like smoke that does not fade. The dream shifts. You find yourself standing before the radio. Its speaker glows faintly, like an ember. The voice crackles again. Not alone. Your heart tightens. The voice is not distant this time. It is right behind you. You turn, but wake before you see what was there. Your eyes open. The candle has burned out. The library is dark, darker than night itself. Around you, the survivors sleep restlessly, turning in their blankets, murmuring in low voices as though they are all caught in the same dream. You sit up slowly. For a moment, you believe you see someone standing by the window. A figure, still and tall, its head bent toward the glass. But when lightning flashes faintly in the distance, the figure is gone. Only the glass remains, streaked with handprints that were not there before. The night stretches endlessly. Sleep presses down on you, but your mind drifts, pulled between waking and dreaming. The whispers return, softer now, almost like a lullaby. Sleep, sleep, the last town standing cannot stand forever. Your eyes grow heavy, the world around you blurs, and you drift into the waiting dark. Morning arrives, but no sunlight follows. When you open your eyes, the world is gray, as though the sky has forgotten how to glow. The candle is gone. The room is filled only with the dull, muted light of a storm waiting to break. The survivors stir, stretching in silence, their eyes hollow, their movements slow. No one speaks of the night. No one mentions the whispers, or the figure at the window, or the strange handprints still pressed into the glass. Instead, all ears turn to one thing. The radio.it crackles alive. A sound low at first, then clearer, sharper, not just noise this time. A voice. To those who can hear, keep moving, you are not safe. The survivors freeze, leaning close. The signal bends, breaking into fragments. We found a place, higher ground. Follow the sound. We are waiting. Then silence. The static fades into the heavy air. For the first time, hope flickers. The group gathers in a circle. Some want to stay. The library feels like shelter, even with the whispers. Others insist the signal means survivors. A chance, maybe even safety. Your eyes drift back to the window. The handprints remain, pressed deep, as though whoever left them had tried to force their way in. Stay, and the whispers might grow louder. Leave, and the shadows outside will follow. The decision is made. You will follow the signal. Stepping out onto the street feels like entering another world. The town is not empty. It never is. Shadows drift at the far edges of sight, unmoving, then shifting the moment you glance away. The survivors walk quickly, quietly, their feet crunching over broken glass, past storefronts still frozen in time. A diner sign swings in the breeze, its rusted hinge screeching softly, like a scream swallowed by distance. Somewhere, a single piano note rings out. No one is playing it. The radio hums faintly as you walk, guiding you forward. But with every block, the whispers return, not from walls, not from dreams this time, but from the air itself. We see you. Keep walking. Don't look behind you. The group tightens together, afraid to speak, afraid even to breathe too loudly. One survivor does look back, and their face goes pale. You don't turn. You don't need to. You can feel it. Something is following. The road stretches ahead, endless, haunted by whispers and shadows. The radio crackles again, faint and broken. Closer now. Hurry. And though the voice feels like salvation, a chill runs through you, because the static that follows does not sound empty. It sounds like breathing. The night was quiet, too quiet. The survivors walked single file through the crumbling remains of the town, their footsteps hushed, their voices silenced by something greater than fear. It was not the ruins that scared them most, not the broken windows, or the overturned cars, or the trees that had clawed their way through cracked streets. It was the sound behind them. At first, it seemed like an echo, the faint rhythm of their own boots against the road. But echoes fade. This did not. Step for step, it followed. When they stopped, it stopped. When they moved again, so did it. No one dared look back. The radio, that little box of broken wires and static, still hummed softly in your hands. Its signal, faint but steady, was the only thread pulling you forward through the dark. And yet, in between the static, something else began to creep in. Not the usual mutters, not the shapeless voices. This time, the words were clearer. Do not turn around. Keep walking. It knows when you notice. You gripped the radio tighter, afraid that if you let go, the whispers would spill into the open air. Behind you, the footsteps grew heavier. Up ahead Ahead, the road split. To the left, a highway overpass that had collapsed long ago, cars tangled like the bones of giants. To the right, a narrow alley, where shadows clung to walls like wet paint. Neither choice was safe, but the sound behind you, steady, deliberate, pushed you toward the alley. The group shuffled into the darkness, hearts pounding, breaths shallow. The alley seemed to close around you, its walls slick with moss, graffiti long faded into something unrecognizable. The air carried the heavy scent of rust, and something sweeter, like fruit left too long in the sun. And then, you saw it. At the far end of the alley, a shape stood in silence. Tall, thin, too still, its head tilted to one side, like it was listening, or remembering. The pale skin of its face caught just enough moonlight to reveal the absence of eyes. Yet, somehow, it was looking directly at you. It didn't move, didn't attack, didn't breathe. It only waited. The survivors froze. The whispers in the radio swelled, frantic now, desperate. Don't stop, keep walking, do not let it learn your name. Slowly, painfully slowly, the group began to move again. Every step closer to the figure was like dragging your body through ice. Its head turned with you, not its shoulders, not its body, only the head, following every step, every movement. When you were finally close enough, the smell of damp earth and decay clung to the air. But still, it did not move. One by one, the survivors slipped past it. No one breathed, no one dared whisper. And then, you were through. Relief bloomed for only a second, because as soon as the alley spat you back onto the open street, the sound returned. The footsteps. This time, they were heavier, slower, almost dragging, as if something enormous was moving behind you. The whispers tangled with the sound, filling your ears, your mind, your very bones. Closer now, we follow always. One by one, you will belong to us. And that's when you understood. The thing that follows does not need to run. It does not need to strike. It only needs to walk, step after step, forever. The radio hummed again, a flicker of guidance, a spark of false hope. Almost there, keep going, safety ahead. But as you tightened your grip on that fragile voice, you could not escape the truth. Maybe the signal was leading you somewhere safe. Or maybe, it was only leading you somewhere the thing had been waiting for all along. And the footsteps, steady, patient, endless, promised only one thing. No matter where you went, it would follow. Always. The radio's faint voice grew stronger. Almost there, follow the light. And through the fog, at last, you saw it. A house. Alone. Standing at the edge of the ruined town like a memory no one had dared erase. Its roof sagged, its windows stared hollow and black, but a pale glow leaked from within, spilling across the cracked pavement like liquid moonlight. The survivors stopped, their breaths caught. After days of wandering, of shadows and whispers, this seemed like an ending, or a beginning. The footsteps behind you had not stopped. They never stopped. But for the first time, they slowed, as though whatever followed had no need to hurry anymore. You moved toward the house, every inch of your body heavy with exhaustion and suspicion. The glow from within shifted, not steady like a lamp, not warm like fire. It pulsed, like something alive. The radio crackled in your hands. Go inside, it is waiting for you. But when you reached the house, you noticed something strange. There were no doors, no handles, no hinges, just walls, unbroken, smooth as stone. The only way in was through the windows. One by one, the survivors pressed their faces close, peering into the glow. What they saw was not furniture, not safety, not shelter. The inside was empty, completely empty, except for the light, the pulsing, breathing light that seemed to throb with the rhythm of a heart. And in its glow, faint shapes moved. Not people, not creatures, just shadows, shifting, stretching, bending in ways no body should. One survivor, desperate, climbed the crumbling ledge and slipped through the window. The moment their feet touched the floor, the glow swelled, bright and sudden. Their body froze, their mouth opened, but no scream came. Instead, their shadow, yes, their shadow, peeled itself from the floor. It rose. It grew taller, sharper, until it towered over them like a grotesque echo. The others could only watch, breathless, as the shadow swallowed its owner whole. And then, nothing remained, not even a trace. The footsteps behind you grew louder again, closer, dragging, patient, unstoppable. The survivors had no choice. One by one, they climbed through the window. Some vanished into the glow instantly. Some lingered a little longer, their shadows clawing at the light before consuming them. Every time, the house seemed to sigh, as if fed. At last, you were the only one left. The radio in your hands hissed and sputtered. Do not resist. It is the only way. You cannot escape. The footsteps were so close now, you could almost feel the cold breath of whatever followed brushing the back of your neck. The glow inside the house pulsed faster, brighter, desperate. It wanted you. It needed you. And as you placed one hand on the window frame, you noticed something new. The glass reflected not your face, but something else. Something tall. Something thin. Something with no eyes. It was already inside, waiting. There was no safe house. No sanctuary. No rescue. The radio had led you not away from the thing that followed, but directly to its heart. And as you climbed inside, the glow swallowed you too, soft, warm, almost gentle, like slipping beneath a blanket. But you knew, deep inside, you hadn't escaped. You had only entered a new kind of trap, because the house had no doors, and what goes in, does not come out. The shadows did not chase, they only waited. Dozens of them, lining the corridor of trees, each one still, each one patient. The survivors clung to the center of the path, their breathing ragged, their eyes darting. But the whispers were inside now, pushing, prodding, reminding them that there was no end. That walking forever was worse than stepping into the dark. It happened quietly. A man near the back, someone who had survived longer than most, someone who had fought the dead with fire and blade, stopped walking. He stood in place as the others moved on, his eyes glazed, his lips trembling with silent words. And then, he stepped sideways, not forward, not back, sideways, into the waiting shadow. The moment his foot crossed the line, the shadow opened, not like a mouth, not like a door, but like liquid parting, like water accepting a stone. The man was swallowed, drawn in, his body pulled against the wall of dark as though the trees themselves were breathing him inward. His scream never came. His voice was gone before sound could leave his throat. And in his place, the shadow thickened, gaining shape, growing taller. Now there were two. The survivors froze, terror sinking deeper than any hunger of the dead. The corridor was not filled with creatures. It was filled with people. The whispers grew into a chant. The shadows pressed tighter, and the woman's hand lingered in the air, still waiting, still patient. Somewhere deep inside, a truth settled like cold stone. No matter what choice they made, none of them would leave unchanged. The woman in white did not move. Her hand remained outstretched, her eyes calm, her smile fixed. Behind, the corridor of shadows pulsed like a living vein. Ahead, she glowed faintly, the only light in a world that had long since drowned in darkness. The survivors stood in the center, their breaths shallow, their feet heavy as stone. Time stretched thin, like a thread ready to snap. It was inevitable. One of them stepped forward, not because he believed her, not because he trusted her, but because he could no longer walk. His body was too tired, his mind was too broken, and her voice, her promise, was sweeter than the ache in his bones. He reached out, fingers brushed hers, and then, the truth revealed itself. Her skin was not warm, it was not cold, it was hollow, like glass that rang when struck, like air given shape. The moment he touched her hand, his body folded inward, not crumbling, not breaking, but dissolving, like smoke caught in a draft. He vanished into her, piece by piece, his face the last to disappear, his eyes wide in horror as though realizing too late that peace had never been promised. She absorbed him, and for the first time, her glow brightened. The survivors gasped, stepping back, but the woman only smiled wider, tilting her head in mock sympathy. "You see," she whispered, "he rests now. All of them do." The shadows along the corridor shivered, their forms trembling like reflections on black water, and the survivors understood. The shadows were her, fragments of her. Every soul that had taken her hand was now another echo in the walls of darkness. One survivor screamed and ran forward, pushing past her, desperate to find what lay beyond. But as he passed her glow, the trees bent inward, the corridor folded like paper, and he found himself running not forward, but back, straight into the same shadows he had fled. The loop was real. There was no end, only the woman, only the choice, resist until exhaustion, or step into her and be unmade. One remained, silent, watching. The whispers grew louder, voices of those who had already gone, calling his name, begging him to join. The woman in white stepped closer, her bare feet soundless on the soil. She leaned in, her smile soft, her eyes glimmering like false stars. "You don't have to suffer anymore," she whispered. "Come, be whole with me." He closed his eyes, and for a moment, he almost believed, because no one tells what he chose. Perhaps he stepped forward, and his voice became one of the whispers, lost forever in the corridor of shadows. Perhaps he turned away, choosing to walk endlessly, trapped in the loop until his body withered to nothing. Or perhaps, he found a third path, one none of the others had ever seen, hidden in the silence silence between heartbeats. We will never know, because the corridor is not theirs anymore. It is yours. As the last voice fades, as the woman in white lingers in the corner of your vision, you hear her final words. Soon, you'll walk here too. The shadows are patient, and so am I.